Are you still there?
And we are live.
And welcome to the Back Catalog Listening Party. This is the show where we invite different guest artists to talk about old records, and we have our musical happy hour. So cheers. My name is Mother Banjo, one of your hosts.
My name is Anthony Ihrig, one of your other hosts.
And today we have joining us Pat Donohue.
Yes, Pat is, we'll give him the applause. I don't know, you won't be able to hear it, Pat, but there's applause coming through. We have a little bit of a technical issue today, so Pat's joining us on his telephone, so he can't hear all the sound effects and things like that. But we're going to be fielding our questions to Pat here shortly, and we'll be bringing in your comments as well. Pat will be able to see your comments if you write them in there, so make sure you write them in the comments. Speaking of which, it looks like we're not the only ones celebrating Happy Hour. We have Alan here. Friday and the shipments. Ooh, I'm not going to try to pronounce that, but yes, that sounds delicious. and Joe, listening hard, sipping a JP slowly in South Minneapolis. All right, cheers to you, Joe.
And I want to say a special shout out to Joe because I ran into him last Saturday at Butter Bakery and Cafe for the Art Vandelay album release show. So he was Art Vandelay was our guest last week. So thanks, great to see you, Joe.
All right, and we got Connie. Hey, Connie in Richfield. And our good friend Chris celebrating the big Oktoberfest this weekend at Utapils Brewing.
Nice.
That sounds delicious. Ellen, what are you imbibing today?
I am sticking with an iced latte right now because I'm just feeling pretty tired after this week. And I have another event to get to tonight. Heather Massey from the Whalen Jennies will be at the Landmark Center. So I'll be heading down there. So need to stay awake and focused for our conversation with Pat Donohue.
That's right. Well, probably a good idea to pace yourself. I'm going with a nice fall-like cider here from Sociable Cider Works here. This is the Freewheeler. It's a nice dry apple cider. And Pat, I don't know if you have any special beverages today. Anything special in the glass?
I have a LaCroix tangerine flavored mineral water here.
Oh, delicious.
Ooh, nice.
All right. Well,
yes, it's a little bit early for me to be drinking anything else.
Well, cheers to you, Pat, and cheers to everybody else out there. Thank you all so much for joining us here today on the Back Catalog Listening Party. It's our musical happy hour where we celebrate great music. And speaking of great music, we have absolutely one of the best in the business. A lot of people who are probably joining us right now know Pat. But Pat, maybe for folks who aren't as familiar with your background, could you just give maybe a couple-minute bio of, kind of your musical history and kind of where the album we're going to listen to today fits along that spectrum?
Okay. Well, I grew up around here in St. Paul, as a matter of fact, not too far from where I live right now. And I don't know, I took up guitar probably about age 11 or 12. I was a drummer, really. I played drums before guitar, and I was in garage bands and high school bands and stuff as a drummer, but I played guitar along with that. And then, I don't know, when I was in my later teen years, I really kind of just went all over to guitar and started playing all the time. And at the same time, I moved to Denver for a while.
Oh, nice.
I lived out there for about 9-10 years, seeking my fame and fortune, to one degree or another.
Right.
And then I moved back here and just started playing around here a little bit, and also made my first record for Red House, maybe in the mid-'80s. And so that kind of started me touring around a little bit. And then sometime later than that, I became a guitar player regular on Prairie Home Companion with Garrison Keillor, and I did that gig for about 20 years. And during that, and to some degree afterwards too, I've been touring around doing, concerts, festivals, coffee houses, teaching situations, things like that.
Yeah, excellent. A lot of people will know Pat from Prairie Home, and I think a lot of people who are in the fingerstyle guitar kind of world, which I know a lot of the fans of our show are into that, those acoustic worlds. You're also a Winfield Championship fingerstyle player, which is quite a big achievement. And it said, I saw in your bio too that you won a Grammy too. When did you win that Grammy?
I think that was in 2004, maybe, or 2006. I was a part of a fingerstyle guitar collection of Henry Mancini songs, as done by solo fingerstyle guitarists.
Nice.
So
Cool.
Lawrence Juber was on it, and I think Tommy Emmanuel was on there, and a few others, and myself. And that was a tribute to Henry Mancini, and I did the Peter Gunn theme.
Oh, nice.
But lo and behold, somehow, however those things work, it wasn't one of my records. It was on a label out of Southern California, the name of which I can't recall right now. But somehow it got nominated for the best instrumental Grammy and instrumental pop album, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's the best instrumental pop album, and it won. So I don't explain that to most people. I just say Grammy winner Pat Donohue.
That's all you need. You got the hardware to show for it, and
I have software. No, I have a plaque, sort of a written thing, signed and made it official and stuff.
Oh,
I don't know where the little icon went to.
Well, it's you're bona fide no matter what, and a lot of the folks, like I said, already know that. And for those who don't yet, we're just going to show you why by diving right into the music. And the first song that we have queued up today is Exercise Blues. Is there anything you want to say about the Exercise Blues here before we dive in and listen?
Excuse me. Well, I go back to it every few years when I have to lose my 20 pounds every 2 years, and then I don't know how other people deal with it, but I'm always kind of carrying around a little extra, so I can always think of an excuse to sing it and say things like, "Oh yes, I've been on a diet. In fact, I'm on 2 diets. There wasn't enough food on one." Really, really hysterical stuff like that. And then I can go ahead and play the song. But mostly, to be honest, the lyrics are kind of, as humorous as you might think that they are or not. But musically, it's a 12-bar blues, and in the key of E, which is on guitar is just something I'm looking for excuses to do. And so as opposed to singing, an old Chicago blues song, which I'm not really certified to do, I made up my own lyrics and
Sing what you know, right?
It's true, and it's an evergreen subject, I'll tell you.
I know. After I took a listen prepping for the show, and after the last 18 months of being at home, I can relate a little more than usual to the Exercise Blues. Why don't we give it a listen? I'm going to grab the album art here and throw it up. And folks, while you're listening, if you want to ask questions for Pat, you can throw them in the comments, and we'll answer them after we give the song a listen. So let's do it. This is Pat Donohue, Exercise Blues, here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Woke up this morning, not looking great. My baby told me to lose some weight. She said, I love you, I think you're sweet, but when I hug you, my hands don't meet. And I said, darling, don't you realize I get the blues when I exercise? I feel the heat, I'm out of breath, my heart is speeding, I'm close to death. I try to hustle, but it's a strain, ain't got a muscle that's not in pain. It's times like this I realize I get the blues when I exercise. motor pumping on the bike. Another something that I don't like. I like those burgers and biggie fries. Yes, I get the blues when I exercise. She got me running, she got me biking. She got me running, biking, jogging, hiking, everywhere I go. Now let it roll. I said, yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess I'm just one of those guys. Yes, I get the blues when I exercise. One of these mornings, it won't be long. You're gonna wake up and find some of me gone. I'm gonna reach and touch my toes till I can squeeze back in my clothes. Or maybe buy a larger size. Yes, I get the blues when I exercise. Yes, I do.
All right, Pat Donohue with Exercise Blues here on the Back Catalog Listening Party. We are joined by Pat Donohue today. We're having a few technical difficulties, but we found a workaround. So he's joining us on the phone so that we can make sure that we ask him all the questions. And looks like Joe said, indeed, in addition to that fantastic pick-in, Pat Shirley writes and sings some great stuff. I still love life stories. And so people relating to exercise blues. And I'd love to hear about what Pat's exercise routine has been during the pandemic, whether he's discovered any new activities that he likes.
So Pat, Ellen was just wondering if you've discovered some new kind of exercise activities post-pandemic, or if anything has changed for you in that way.
Well, first of all, this is kind of like having a translator.
It's a little bit of telephone.
No, I've been doing a lot of walking, really, mostly more than anything, and it sounds kind of boring, but it's really not. I turn on, I've got headphones for that, and I walk around in my neighborhood and for at least 35 or 40 minutes every morning, more or less.
Is this
so that's what I do
song
for
is going through your head
because
the whole time?
Well, I try not to too much, but I just find that if I do anything other than that, I end up at this advanced age with some kind of ache or pain that'll last another 2.5 weeks, and then I learn better than to go jogging or anything like that.
But that's probably like a whole new blues song, right?
It could be, yeah, and I just as soon avoid that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a lot of people were relating with the exercise blues. We got some great emojis, and Chris has got it cranked up, and Alan, I love his comments, says, so relatable it hurts. And,
yeah, right.
And Alinda says, love the blues, and I do too. And I think just, knowing that you're kind of growing up in these parts, it's always fascinating to me how people kind of discover their kind of musical voice or like the genre that really speaks to them. So I would love to hear a little bit about how the blues kind of came into your life. Where did you discover this, and how did it kind of take over and become kind of your thing?
Boy. Like I said, I was a drummer first. Maybe when I was about 10, I wangled a set of drums out of my folks, and so I would play along to records, and then the first musical experiences I have being in a band or anything was I was a drummer in a power rock trio, and our guitarist, who you may be familiar with, Dean McGraw, he's the local guitarist.
A past guest here on the show.
Yes, okay. Well, he was our guitar player, and so I was just starting to dabble in guitar a little bit at that point, and he was listening to a lot of early blues type stuff, and that really caught my ear. People like Blind Lake and Robert Johnson and Reverend Gary Davis and Big Bill Brunzi, people like that. I kind of started studying all those blues guitar styles a lot, and so that really was the beginning of the foundation of my guitar style, whatever it is listening to those people.
That's great. And this is, pre-YouTube. So how do you go about learning this stuff back then? I mean, I think that's something that people don't think about, now, because you can just kind of
No, it's a very good point,
Google
actually.
anything. How were you learning this stuff back then?
You had to find the records, really, and there weren't very many places that you could find old blues records, or at least reissues of old blues records. I mean, we couldn't play the 78s anyway, but they did reissue a lot of that stuff, and you had to go to specialty record stores. And I remember, especially in Minneapolis, there was a place on Hennepin, I think it was called Pyramid Records. And they had all the European stuff, and they really hard to find out of print stuff of old blues and jazz. And so I remember getting a lot of records there. But that's how I learned, lift the needle on the record player up and over again until I figured out kind of what they were up to in some cases. And I'm still working on it in some other cases. So.
Yeah, I hear that. Well, that's fascinating too. And did you ever slow the records down to try to kind of figure out what they were doing with the finger picking and things like that?
And that's also much easier now too. But one advantage was anybody whoever did this will recognize that when you slowed a 33 down to the next lowest speed, it went down in speed at exactly an octave. So you could use that to your advantage. You didn't have to retune when you went way down slow. You just had to think in octaves. I remember that.
I did not know. That's a great trick. Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. I think that's again like the journey that different generations have with kind of accessing this American music. It's really different. And was there anybody coming through the Twin Cities at this time that you saw, any kind of live shows that kind of inspired you especially with the fingerstyle stuff?
Yes, several, I would say. I saw, Big Joe Williams, Mighty Joe Young. I saw Roosevelt Sykes, the piano player. Saw John Jackson, the Piedmont-style guitar player. Loved that guy. Let's see, who else? Leon Redbone, I remember the summer, that same summer. It was been 1972 or 3. We didn't know Leon yet, but he came and played a free concert at the University of Minnesota, and I remember seeing that one there. And he was a great guitar player. I loved his guitar style. So I saw a lot of people, and I was really influenced by, in addition to those guys that I was talking about, Brad Cooter, love Brad Cooter, and Leo Kottke, our own Leo Kottke, was a big influence too.
Yeah, and he was probably doing some stuff locally back then.
Yep. Yes, I also I went and lived in Denver, like I said, for a while, and there's a club in Boulder that used to have all the great folk and acoustic acts coming through. It was called Tulagi. And so I saw anybody you can think of from that era, because I used to almost live there. But
that's great. What a connection.
Yeah, I would. That's how I learned, is watching people and soaking it up.
And that's so interesting that you were talking about, these folk acts and these blues acts, and then Leon Redbone, who's a mixture of so many things. You play so many different styles. I'd be curious how you decided which kind of songs and why you decided to make this record, Nobody's Fault, the way that you did in this kind of blues style.
I think I actually heard that question.
Oh.
So, you don't have to translate it, I don't think, although I'm not sure if I remember it now. I'm serious. What was the last part of the question?
So the last part of the question was just, how did you decide what songs and what style to make this record in, given that you are so eclectic in your musical tastes and the kinds of music that you've played over the years?
I see what you mean, yeah. At some point along the way, I stopped thinking in terms of genres too much, and different styles. Like they all kind of run together in what I do. And when I started writing my own songs, I just wrote them with a general sense of guitar approach to those old blues players, and then whatever I was doing that was different got added into it. So the songs, when I started writing my own songs, and that's what we're listening to from this album, the guitar parts are definitely motivated by my heroes. And on that last one, for instance, the Exercise Blues, I played an electric guitar solo. And I don't, most people know I don't play as much electric guitar as I do acoustic guitar, but it was really fun. I remember in the studio, because I played the solo over the track. I overdubbed the solo on electric guitar, in which case I could take the amplifier and I cranked it up to 10 and then 11 and then 12, and it just was just squealing like nothing. And then you could kind of put it in a room by itself with a microphone and let them fight it out. And it makes a sound that way that it doesn't make when you've got it turned up to 5. Yeah. And so I really like the tone of the guitar on those. But I don't think I could do that live, but it was great in the studio.
Wonderful.
That's cool.
Well, let's give folks more of a listen of this record. The next blues song we have is the Irish Blues. Is there anything you want to say before we dig in, Pat?
The Irish Blues is a song that, like a lot of these, there's a certain point when I was working for a Prairie Home Companion that I wanted to come in with something new, pretty much every week. And I remember we were doing a show in New York just before St. Patrick's Day. Actually, it was on St. Patrick's Day, and then the rehearsal. Garrison just looked at me one day, that day, and he said, I knew he was going to say this to me. He said, "I think we need an Irish blues." And he was looking straight at me. So I just went and wrote it, and it's one of those songs that just came out in about 10 minutes, unlike most of the things I write are more painstaking than this. But, yeah, it just kind of rolled right out, and that's the story I got.
All right, let's give it a listen. This is Pat Donohue, Irish Blues, here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Well, I woke up this morning and got out of bed. My face was all ruddy, my hair was all red, my eyes were all bloodshot. I thought I was dead. I woke up today with the Irish blues. Well, I try to be good, but faith and big Gora, I go to bed laughing and wake up in sorrow. And muddle you bet it's the same thing tomorrow. I woke up today with the Irish blues. I woke up today with the Irish blues. Well, I'm a grown man, but just like my daddy, I like to go out on the feast of St. Patty and take on the ways of a much younger laddie and wake the next day with the Irish blues. My brother's a priest and my sister's a nun and my wife is against any measure of fun. So I go out myself and I get the job done and I wait the next day with the Irish blues. And last night we really got going, and last night the Guinness was flowing, the singing, the dancing I couldn't refuse. I woke up today with the Irish blues. Get up early cause mass is at 7, and there I find Seamus and Michael and Kevin. We're all trying to get our sad souls into heaven. We woke up today with the Irish blues. And last night we really got going, and last night the Guinness was flowing, the singing, the dancing I couldn't refuse. I woke up today with the Irish blues. And last night the Guinness was flowing, and last night we really got going, the singing, the dancing I couldn't refuse. I woke up today with the Irish blues. The Irish
All right, Pat Donohue with the Irish Blues. And I love the way that song is truly musically, truly a combination of Irish traditional music and the blues. You
Yeah,
know,
is
you
that the
have
Irish Washerwoman? Is that the melody?
I think that's what it's called. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I recognize it from cartoons.
Right. I'm sure that's where I heard it.
Yeah, I love it.
Deep
Yeah.
Irish roots that I have.
Well, I love that. I mean, I feel like that's one of those things that can be so tough with traditional music is, taking on some sort of other persona. We've talked about that a bit, and that, when we talk to artists that delve into, other traditions. And I love that you're imparting, your Donohue here on the in the blues. I love it. It sounds great.
So
And,
I'm appropriating my own culture for a change.
and it looks like we have a comment from Steve as well.
Hey,
Question
Steve.
about songwriting. So,
yeah, he says, awesome, Pat, thanks. If Irish Blues wasn't painstaking to write, what does a more usual tune look like in terms of how you approach songwriting and editing, revisions, etc.?
Oh, it's a good question, and I wish I could answer it better because I don't have a real usual method for writing. The motivation, used to be that to keep my job, I kept writing, and now, since I don't have that situation, I've noticed that I've written a lot fewer things. But I'm not really that upset about it or anything like that. I write once in a while when it comes to me, but I don't sit down and say I'm going to write a song today, because I've tried that and it always backfires.
and do you know that a song is done right away, or do you have to perform it and then it goes through some revisions before you know it's done?
Can you give me that one, Anthony?
Yeah, so she was just wondering if you kind of just know, hey, the song is done, or does it have to go through certain revisions? Do you kind of work through it over time and
Perform it? Yeah,
and perform it, get road test it, so to speak?
Some of them, come out pretty much factory ready out of the box. Like that one, I didn't take too much. I play it now a little bit better because my guitar part on it has evolved a little bit. But some of them are a work in progress to the extent that if I play it for people and it's their reaction, when you play a song for people a few times, you can tell whether they like it or not, and they're the ones that get to decide. Not you, whether they like the song or not. We forget.
Yeah.
So I try and listen to that. And, and if the song just isn't making it, and even if I might like it, I tend to just kind of lay it down in favor of songs that people like more.
Interesting. Like once you put it out there, it's kind of everyone's art. I love that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you just tuned into Back Catalog Listening Party today, we are talking with Grammy-winning guitarist Pat Donohue today about his 2011 release, Nobody's Fault. And again, due to some technical hurdles today, he's joining us via phone, although we're so excited that he's here to answer your questions. And it looks like we have another one from Chris Jetner.
Yes, and Chris says, Pat, do you play more as a soloist these days, or do you get some friends to join you kind of band-like? And Chris says, we saw you at the old Artist Quarter a few years ago with a couple others that you were playing with.
Oh, I'm really, really glad you asked that. Because I still do solo shows occasionally. However, this summer starting, and I'm still doing this every Wednesday evening at a place called the Midway Saloon in St. Paul at Snelling and University. There's a place, that's the place called the Midway Saloon, and I do a show called Pat Donohue and Friends every Wednesday from 6 to 8. And every week it's different. The other night I had Tim Sparks, local guitarist and member of Rio Nito, join me, and had a great time. And one time Dean, as we were talking about, Dean McGraw joined me. And I have people from the Prairie All-Stars, my band, like Richard Crean, and Dan Newton joins me sometimes, Peter. So it's really kind of a different thing every week. And I do love playing with other people. I got the gig just so I could have an excuse to play music with my friends. And so far, it's been a really good one. So come on down, Wednesday night, 6 to 8.
Yes,
right.
It's always fun.
That sounds great, and I'm sure you can get that information on your website, Pat. I'm scrolling it across the screen, patdonohue.com, and I reckon there's also some CDs for sale through your website, Pat. Is that true?
Yes, for those who still do CDs. As you can see, I still have my record collection back there.
Hey, you're talking to the listening party crew here. We love our physical media. We like higher resolution whenever possible, and I'm going to get into that actually next. But if you like hearing, how it's supposed to sound, folks, not kind of crushed into little bits through streaming platforms, you probably want to grab the high resolution physical copies. You can get it at patdonahue.com. And that does kind of lead me into a question I had for you, Pat, about the production. I think this sounds world class. I mean, the production on this record sounds great. I'd love to know where this was recorded and who was pushing the knobs or pushing the faders and twisting the knobs.
It was recorded at Wild Sound Studios in North Minneapolis, which I think are still there. I think there's a guy named Steve Call that's turning the knobs these days. Matthew
Zimmerman?
I spent a long time. There was a fellow named Matthew there who was
Matthew Zimmerman.
Instrumental in the beginning of that studio, and I can't remember his last name right now, but he did a lot of knob twisting on that, and he did a great job.
Yeah,
I do like the way the record sounds.
We've had more than one guest that has recorded there. Both Ellen and I have as well, and it's really one of the best studios in the state for sure, and it's no surprise to us. Sounds fantastic. And did you they have a wonderful large room there at Wild Sound, and did you sit there and record this live with the other musicians, or did you kind of layer it over time?
We recorded them all together, the ones with the band on them, and then there were some things that I went over and did, like that electric guitar solo I was telling you about. I went over and we left a space for that, and I overdubbed that on electric guitar. But the tracks with the band were done together.
Fantastic.
Nice.
Well, it sounds really, really good, and kudos to Wild Sound here in Minneapolis too.
Yeah, right.
And I want to make sure we hear more of this album while we have Pat here, so we can talk more about these tracks. The next song we have queued up is "You Haunt Me."
Yes, so we have "You Haunt Me" queued up here. Pat, is there anything you want to say about this one before we take a listen?
Yeah, it's good to be that season. This is my Halloween type song. But I like this song pretty much, and I will say one. I snitched a part of it that somebody who listens to this might recognize. At the very beginning, there's a little guitar part that has a kind of a minor and diminished sort of scale in it, and I snitched it from Duke Ellington intro of I'm not even sure what song it was, but I know that his band did this intro on a song, and I just really love the way it sounds, so I appropriated it. I'm not sorry. I still like it. But the rest of the song is absolutely mine.
Very cool. Well, let's give it a listen. This is Pat Donohue, "You Haunt Me," here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Sometimes when the moon is right, casting beams of pale gray light, in my dreams you come in the night and you haunt me, like a breeze that starts to blow in the trees moaning low, with memories of long ago. You haunt me. I thought you were gone for good. I must have misunderstood. I feel a chill, and then you start to rattle the chains around my heart. Now I'm scared of counting sheep. I'm afraid I'll fall asleep, and into my dreams you'll surely creep and haunt me. since you've been gone. When it's late and I'm alone, I feel the cold wind start to blow through the attic of my soul. Our love has died, it's buried down 6 feet underneath the ground. How come you keep on coming round to haunt me?
Oh man, Pat Donohue with "You Haunt Me," perfect as we head into the Halloween season here on Back Catalog Listening Party. Pat Donohue joining us today from St. Paul. Through the magic of various technologies, we've managed to pipe in his voice today, and we're so happy.
Alexander Graham Bell technology.
It really is.
We're making it work.
We are, and thank you all for joining us. And I have to ask about, what a great song. I agree with Connie and the heart emoji from Joe. I want to know a little bit about who's playing. I mean, every song on this record sounds great, and I'm sure you have an A-list cast of characters. But on that song in particular, there was a little like organ and some slide, and I'd love to know who's playing on that track.
So, Pat, if you didn't hear that, Ellen was just asking about the personnel here. She was enjoying that organ and some of the other sounds coming from the other instruments. Who's playing on this record and on that track in particular?
It's mostly members of the Guys All-Star Shoe Band at the time, and now members of the Pat Donohue and the Prairie All-Stars. But we heard Richie Dworsky on the organ, the
nice.
B3 organ. And wasn't that a great sound? I just was... I love when the organ comes in. It sounds perfectly spooky, and so I like that. But Richie can play keyboards like nobody business. And let's see who else we had on there. Probably Richard Crean, our mandolin player, Peter Johnson on drums, and Gary Rayner on bass.
Nice.
I think I overdubbed a dobro guitar part there. Maybe a national steel guitar part there, slide guitar.
Cool. Yeah, it sounded great.
Yeah, really cool stuff. And I love the vibe on that, the kind of slow lilt to it. It just adds a good creepy quality.
Yep, Ellen was just saying it's perfect for this season, like you said. It had kind of a haunting.
Yeah, that's right. We got until October 31st to milk this one every year.
Well, it's funny because we've talked before with other artists on the show about how there's just songs that just make sense during certain seasons, and they just don't feel right in other seasons. So is that true with this one? You don't actually, you wouldn't play this in the, peak of summer, or is it a fall
I
tune?
do tend to play it more seasonally, but I have played it other times of the year, and it's almost as relevant then, but it's especially good at this time of year.
Well, it sounded great, and Ellen, did you have something else you wanted to say there? I thought maybe you were going to say something.
No, except that I want to just encourage people again to buy this CD if they like how it sounds, because it sounds real good. And Pat was telling me before that he needs to make room for some other albums on his shelf. So I'm just saying, I think you might want to order a copy while you can. And in addition to throwing tips in the tip jar, Pat also was going to encourage folks to make donations to Second Harvest, because talking about the season, as weather gets colder and gardens dry up a bit here in Minnesota, it's a good time to think about supporting your local food shelf. So that is a great way of doing that as well. So I wanted to mention that. But I think we can squeeze in maybe 2 more songs.
Yeah, I think so too. And I'm really curious. So, Pat, we're gonna move right into the next track that we had lined up, which is a song that I think a lot of people will recognize, but have probably never heard it quite like this, and it is Hound Dog. And when I put it on, I thought, well, is that the song I'm thinking of? And then when I heard it, I was like, wow, that is a really cool interpretation of this tune. And I would love to hear a little bit about how you went about arranging this particular version of Hound Dog.
You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog is, most people know it from Elvis Presley, one of his early hits, which it certainly was. But he came across it from a blues artist named Big Mama Thornton, whose song it was, and she did a version of it, and recorded version of it. It was a little bit slower, not quite like the one I'm doing, but it was definitely slower than Elvis's. And I'm hearing that. I remember I was playing around with the groove one day with the band, and this kind of a thumpy sort of groove came out, and started playing that song along with it, and it seemed in my mind to work really well together. So that's how the arrangement came about.
Right on.
Playing with those guys, you don't have to play very long before something really good happens. It's just because they're good.
The chemistry in the room. Yeah, I love the groove on this one. I think you all are going to enjoy it too. This is Pat Donohue, his take on Hound Dog here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
You ain't nothing but a hound dog, sniffing around my dog. Ain't nothing but a hound dog, sniffing around my dog. You can wag your tail, I ain't gonna feed you no more. Yeah, you told me you was real high class, but I could see through that. Yeah, you told me you was real high class, but I could see through that. And I found out you ain't no real cool cat. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, sniffing on my door. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, sniffing on my door. Yeah, you can wag your tail, but I ain't gonna feed you no more. You made me feel so blue. You made me weep. You made me feel so blue. You made me weep. You weren't looking for a man, you're just looking for a home. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, sniffing on my door. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, sniffing on my door. You can wag your tail, I ain't gonna feed you no more.
I can't believe that song ends with a fade out. I want to know what happens after the fade out on that song. Pat Donohue, his take on Hound Dog. And I have to say, I can hear Big Mama Thornton's version of that song was my favorite prior to hearing Pat Donohue's. This, though, I can hear the inspiration, but this has a more swampy vibe, kind of
Yeah.
a J.J. Cale kind of groove thing going on. And I would love to know again who's playing harmonica, and then Chris had a question also about the guitar as well. So
Yeah. So, Pat, Ellen had a couple questions for you. One of them is who's on the harp on that one?
I think that is Joe Savage, who is a great pedal steel player
Yeah,
around
that's
this
what I know
area.
from. Oh, wow.
But he also plays the heck out of harmonica, as you can tell.
Awesome. And Chris actually had another question about was that did you play an electric guitar or was that one of your acoustics with effects? Yes.
No, that was an electric. It's a Telecaster, and it was another example of when we turn the amplifier up and put it in a room by itself, it makes a nice sound, and I definitely heard it on that.
Yeah.
Too. I like the guitar tone on it, but it's an electric Fender Telecaster.
Yeah, I could hear that. You can just tell it's pushing the circuitry of
Yeah.
of that amp.
There's no effects on it other than sheer volume.
Yes, it's
which
just
is an effect in itself.
It's called whatever harmonic distortion happens when you crank it up. That sounded really, really cool. And you were kind of having some fun there, with some of that, those guitar licks. And Ellen was saying, "Man, I'm surprised it faded out." I want to know what happened after that. Did it go on for another, 35 minutes? Was it like a mountain jam situation? What was going on there?
I would say probably not, because if anything really great happened after that, I probably would have left it on there. That's probably the wheels probably started to fall off the wagon shortly thereafter.
That dog ran away.
Yeah, looks like we have another guitar-related question here from Joe, and he's asking about your acoustics. Do you have any Hoffman guitars among your acoustic guitar collection? We just had...
No, I wish I did. I have two Martin Pat Donohue signature model acoustic guitars. I have a Kevin Ryan guitar that is unfortunate state of disrepair right now. I have another older Martin 00018, and that's all the acoustics I've got. But my friend Tim Sparks, who I mentioned earlier, he has a Hoffman he's playing the other night. It's a really great guitar.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and do you have I guess I always, my experience mostly of hearing your music in the past has been through things like Prairie Home Companion and things like that, and I always really was thinking acoustic. And when I was kind of prepping for the show and hearing all that electric, do you have an arsenal of classic Telecasters and Stratocasters and stuff as well at home?
No, again, I wish, but I'm down to fairly few. I have one Telecaster, which you just heard. And then, I have another one of those, two of those. And then I have a Gibson Les Paul electric guitar, and I think that's it for electrics. Just
nice.
Those three.
Well, some beautiful tone coming out of those electrics.
Well, maybe
that
some folks...
Teletone is a real kind of a classic 1950s sort of setup in the guitar.
Yeah,
so it sounds like that.
And we got another kind of songwriting guitar question here. Do you tend to write on acoustic or electric? Is the inspiration or outcome different between, picking up an acoustic guitar and electric guitar when you're sitting down to write?
Yeah, I'd say 95% on the acoustic. I have written on the electric before, successfully, but mostly I do it on acoustic because that's usually what's kind of lying around, and that's what I play most of the time anyway.
Great question. All right.
Very nice. Well, we can squeeze in one more song if we dive in now. So let's try and make it happen. And speaking of guitars, since clearly we have a lot of guitar heads on the show, and I was wondering what would happen when two banjo players talk to a Grammy-winning guitarist. What would happen today? But it sounded good. And this song is called "Would You Like to Play the Guitar?"
Yeah, so Pat, we're just kind of talking about this idea of how many guitar fans there are out here watching the show today, and that you have a song called "Would You Like to Play the Guitar?" And this one is a great one, and I think some of those guitar players out there might already know it. But do you want to speak a little bit about the origin of this one? This one I've seen other people cover this one, and I just found out when we did this today that it came from you. It's got legs. This is a great tune. Do you want to talk about it?
Yes, I could. It's one of my more successful requested songs, although not in a financial sense. Oddly, it didn't work that way. However, I know a lot of guitar players, finger pickers around the country are actually performing this song. I've seen several YouTubes of people in performance doing this song, which I'm all in favor of. It's a parody of "Swingin' on a Star," an old hit by Frank Sinatra and others. And I think that this would have gone back to maybe the early 90s, 1990s, and I was at a music camp with some other teachers, instructors, and musicians, and I think that's when I struck on this idea, and I remember taking suggestions for what verses should be about from other instructors. Make one about the wife. That's a big thing. And for whoever that was a big thing that he was going through at the time. And
yeah.
So another one was having trouble with the agent, and so I kind of put it together with that kind of thing in mind, and made it up on the way back from wherever I was. I think it was someplace in Wisconsin.
Well, it's great because it's like I think anybody who does art for a living will resonate with this song. You can kind of substitute your art for the guitar in this case. And,
it's pretty much. You just have to come up with some different rhymes to rhyme with whatever your art form is, and you could apply this anywhere.
Absolutely. It's such a fun one and a great way to kind of kick off our weekend and end our show today here. This is Pat Donohue. Would you like to play the guitar here on the Back Catalog Listening Party?
Would you like to play the guitar? Take your money home in a jar from a coffee house or a bar.
Susan, you can come down if you want.
Or would you rather get a job?
Good.
Well, a job is the thing that makes you get out of bed and work every day until you're dead. Your back is aching and your brain is numb. And
But you don't have to feel like you're...
wait until the weekends come. But if you don't want to starve or beg or rob, you just might have to get a job. Or would you like to play the guitar? Drive for miles and miles in your car and pretend that you're a big star? Or would you rather book the gig?
Yeah, it's still going. It's still going, but
Well,
you can come down and not
the
be...
guy who gets his 20%. What he said ain't exactly what he meant.
Last
He'll clean you out in ways you never thought, 'cause he's good at
I'll
business.
explain later.
He knows you're not, and then he'll sue if you finally make it big. 'Cause he's the guy that booked the gig. But would you like to play the guitar for a living? Hardy har har. I admit it's kind of bizarre. But would you rather be the wife? Well, the wife is the one who has to rescue our butts. She's either a saint or else she's nuts. She gets impatient and she gets annoyed, 'cause she's the one who must remain employed. And by the way, if you want to wreck your life, become a guitar player's wife. 'Cause all the monkeys aren't in the zoo. They can be trained to play guitar too. Some do a whole lot better than you. But even if you don't go far, you could be worse off than you are. At least you're playing your guitar.
Pat Donohue, that's right. With Would You Like to Play the Guitar from his 2011 release, Nobody's Fault, which we've been revisiting today on the Back Catalog Listening Party. Pat Donohue joining us from St. Paul through all kinds of different technical rigmarole to make it happen. And we so appreciate Pat taking the time to make this happen today.
Yes, Pat, thank you so much for joining us today. This is a really enjoyable
It's my
hour.
privilege and honor, really. Thank you for having me. Made me think about my catalog again, which I tend not to do. Once I hear it and record it, I never listen to it again, so it's kind of a fun thing.
You're not alone, and we all really appreciated getting a chance to hear it again. And Alinda here gives the big thumbs up, and Connie says another fabulous show, and our friend Chris says, great to see you, Pat, thank you. Ellen, Anthony, and everybody else have a great weekend. And I'm so glad that you mentioned your weekly show too, Pat, at the Midway Saloon.
The Midway Saloon, Wednesday nights, 6 to 8. Pat Donohue and friends. It's a blast.
Yeah, let's all meet there, okay, everybody in the Twin Cities?
Yeah, sounds good.
And I'll tell you
Field
something
trip.
else you don't get with most folk venues: 100 kinds of whiskeys and 50 kinds of beer.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you heard it. Yep, you too can wake up with the Irish blues, folks, after a Wednesday night at the Midway Saloon. And Steve says, yeah, and Matthew Winter says, thumbs up. And, man, yeah, thanks again, Pat. We really appreciate you sharing your time and your talents. And we also want to thank all of you who are out there commenting and listening, either right now during the show or after the show. Thank you so much for being here and being part of this. This is our weekly hour to just be together and in community here with you, and we couldn't do it without you. And especially a huge shout out to our Patreon supporters, right, Ellen?
Mm-hmm. And we want to thank Penny, Ann, Alinda, Bevan, Connie, Vaughn, Alan, Chris, Alex, Becky, Galen, Peggy, Joe, Jim, Beverly, John, Fred, Tim, Sarah, David, Jocelyn Court, and our brand new Patreon supporter, Matt Winters. Thank you so much. And if you want to support the show and maybe beef up our technology a bit, you can go to patreon.com/back catalog listening party. And we're so excited because we actually just announced our next after party. So that's one of the perks that you get when you support the show. But mainly, if you like the show, just keep joining us and telling your friends and hanging out. And if you like it, you can give it the thumbs up on YouTube, direct the bots to Pat Donohue, and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel to find out what's coming up next. But mainly, we just want to thank you for being here and thank Pat.
Yeah. So, Pat, you're just a circle. You're just a circle on the screen right now, but I know you're there again. The tried and true technology of the phone.
It's the geezer spell.
We can't see you, but we know you're there because of this technology. And thanks again for being here. We really appreciate you spending the time with us.
Thank you. I'm sorry it worked out like this. It seemed a lot better the other day, Ellen.
That's how the internet
really
works
doing
sometimes.
But the music sounded just as good as ever, and it was a ton of fun. So thanks again, Pat, and thanks to all you for joining us. And we'll see you next week here on the Back Catalog Listening Party. Cheers.
Cheers.